Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty universal, but maybe not fully understood. Falling in love.
Yeah, the big one.
You asked us to look into why we're drawn to certain people, the mystery of it all. So we're diving into falling in love, why we choose the lovers we choose.
It's a fascinating read. It really tries to get past the cliches.
Exactly. Forget the Cupid stuff for a sec. This book uses social psychology, clinical perspective.
And the author's own takes, yeah, to really unpack attraction.
So our mission is to sort of decode those key insights.
Right, moving beyond just thinking it's random chance or, fate.
Yeah, that whole match made in heaven idea. We want to see what forces are really at play.
So where do we start? The book kicks off with something almost counterintuitively simple.
Proximity, right. Just being near someone.
Exactly. It sounds almost too basic, doesn't it?
It really does. But the evidence is kind of compelling.
Yeah, think about it logically. Who are you going to meet? People you see often. Neighbors, classmates.
People at work.
Right. And those studies, like the old ones from the 50s looking at marriage licenses.
Uh-huh.
People often married someone living just blocks away. Or even in the same building.
It's wild. Like, your soulmate could literally be next door just because they are next door.
And that study with the police recruits is a great example.
Oh, yeah. Remind me of that one.
They assigned roommates and seats randomly, just based on last names. Alphabetical order, basically.
Okay.
And proximity, just being near each other, was a stronger predictor of who became friends than things like age or background similarity.
Wow. Stronger than actual shared interests.
In that initial stage, yeah. It points to this thing called the mere exposure effect.
Mere exposure. So just seeing someone repeatedly.
Pretty much. Robert Zionk did work on this. Showed people unfamiliar faces over and over.
And they started liking the faces more, even without interaction.
Exactly. Our brains just seem to get comfortable with and even prefer what's familiar.
That totally clicks with, like, office romances or relationships starting in class. You just see them all the time.
It lowers the barrier, maybe makes them feel safer, more predictable.
And didn't you mention something funny about how we see our own faces?
Oh yeah, the mirror image study.
Yeah.
We tend to prefer how we look in the mirror.
Because that's what we see every day.
Right. But our friends, they prefer regular photos of us because that's their familiar view.
Okay, that makes sense. So familiarity is key. What about the opposite then? Absence making the heart grow fonder. Is that real?
It's complicated, according to the book. It kind of depends.
On the relationship already.
Yeah. If things are already solid, a short separation might actually boost the romance a bit. You appreciate them more, maybe.
Okay, I can see that.
But if the relationship's rocky or the separation is really long, it often leads to drifting apart. Connection needs, well, connection.
Right, consistency matters. Okay, so proximity gets you in the door, maybe. But what about that actual spark? The book talks about arousal, right?
Yes, heightened emotions playing a role. And not always specifically romantic ones, interestingly. Well, if you meet someone when you're already feeling keyed up, maybe excited, maybe even a bit stressed or scared.
Like on a shaky bridge, that famous study.
Exactly like that, yeah. Or even just doing something really engaging. Arthur Rand explored this. Those strong feelings can kind of bleed over.
Bleed over? You mean you mistake the feeling for attraction?
That's the idea of misattribution of arousal. Your brain feels something strong while you're with this person.
Uh-huh.
And it might just label that feeling as, wow, I'm really into them, even if the feeling actually came from the situation, not the person.
Like that folk dancing example in the book.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
All that energy, the music, the movement.
Right.
You're aroused in a general sense.
Right.
And if you're dancing with someone appealing, boom, misattribution.
Okay, that's fascinating. And then layer on top of that all the cultural stuff, right? Love at first sight, soulmates.
Big time. Those ideas act like scripts almost. They tell us what falling in love should feel like.
So if we feel that intense physiological thing, we're primed to call it love.
Pretty much. The book mentions this three-factor theory. You need the cultural idea of love, a person who seems like a suitable candidate,
Okay.
and that physiological arousal that you then interpret as love because the culture told you that's what it is.
Huh. So it's not just biological, it's biological filtered through our social learning.
Exactly. And it even suggests something simple like being in a good mood can help.
Make them seem better.
Yeah, you might perceive potential partners more positively if you're already feeling good. And bonus, you probably seem more attractive too.
Right. Positive vibes attract positive vibes. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Looks. Physical attractiveness.
Can't ignore it. The book definitely acknowledges its power, especially that initial pull.
Like Venus, goddess of beauty and love, it's deeply ingrained.
For sure. But it also stresses that beauty is, in the eye of the beholder to some extent.
Yeah, it feels so subjective sometimes. What one person finds stunning, another might not.
True. Culture plays a huge role, individual taste too. But there are some patterns that seem pretty consistent.
Like what?
Things like waist-to-hip ratio in women, often linked to perceptions of health and fertility.
Ah, the evolutionary psychology angle.
Kind of. And for men, things like height, maybe musculature, the male taller norm is a real thing in couples.
Yeah, you see that a lot. What about symmetry? That came up too.
Right? Body symmetry. It's linked in studies to how attractive someone is rated, even how sexy.
And it might signal something deeper biologically.
Possibly. Some research connects it to things like fertility or even aspects of sexual history, like starting earlier or having more partners. It's complex, but symmetry seems to be a marker we pick up on.
So maybe our brains are subconsciously calculating health or genetic fitness based on these visual cues.
That's one theory. But there are other reasons beauty might attract, maybe more social ones.
Like,
Well, attractive people often get more positive social feedback throughout their lives.
so they might just develop better social skills.
Could be. And then there's that reflected glory idea.
Meaning, you look good just by being with someone attractive.
Yeah, bit of status by association, maybe.
Okay, so looks open the door, maybe get you noticed. But it's definitely not the whole story. What about competence?
Ah, yes. We like people who are good at things, obviously.
Mm.
Competence is attractive.
But the book had that twist, right?
Mm.
About the blunder.
Yes. The quiz show study. Someone super competent, almost too perfect,
Mm.
actually became more likable after making a small mistake, like spilling coffee.
It made them seem more human, relatable.
Exactly. Although there was a nuance.
Oh.
It seemed that effect was stronger for men judging other highly competent men. Women judging competent men actually preferred them without the blunder, generally.
Huh. Interesting gender difference there. Okay, but beyond just raw competence or blunders, what about personality?
That's crucial. The book hammers home the importance of things like warmth, sensitivity, having a good sense of humor.
Yeah, that feels more like long-term relationship stuff.
For sure. Both men and women consistently rate those traits very highly, often above looks or status.
Because they build connection, make you feel good.
Precisely.
Mm.
They foster intimacy, make you feel seen, understood. And there was that cool point about perception.
The self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. When men thought a woman was attractive, even if others hadn't rated her that way,
They treated her better?
they were warmer, more engaging. And guess what? Her confidence went up. She responded more positively and actually came across as more attractive, even to neutral observers later.
Wow. So our expectations can literally change the dynamic. Mind blown.
It's powerful stuff.
Okay, what about similarity? Birds of a feather. Does that hold up?
Overwhelmingly, yes. The book really emphasizes this. We tend to be drawn to people who are like us.
In what ways? Background, personality?
All of the above. Family, background, personality traits, attitudes, values, even physical appearance to some extent. Thinking styles, goals, hobbies.
It's comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Finding common ground.
Yeah, it's validating. It makes us feel like our own way of being is okay, is shared.
And the research backs this up across a lot of areas.
A ton of variables.
Yeah.
Age, intelligence, values, habits, political views, activity levels.
Mm-hmm.
Partners tend to line up.
So much for opposites attract, then.
Yeah. It's complicated. The book acknowledges that idea exists.
Yeah, you hear it all the time.
And there's some clinical observation, anecdotal stuff of opposites pairing up, like the super logical person with a really emotional one.
And they can be happy.
Some report high satisfaction, yeah. These complementary relationships can work. Differences can be exciting sometimes.
Maybe being liked by someone different feels more earned or special.
Perhaps. But the book cautions against taking the opposites attract maxim too literally. It can set up unrealistic expectations.
So what's the more accurate picture?
Generally, we seem drawn to people similar in the big things, background, core values, maybe intelligence level. But we might find attraction in someone who complements us in certain personality dimensions. Not opposite, but complementary.
Okay, like maybe an introvert finds an extrovert's social ease appealing, but they still need to share fundamental values.
Exactly. And the book points out when you do see big apparent differences, like in attractiveness.
The Beauty and the Beast scenario.
Right. There's often an assumption that the less conventionally attractive partner must have other amazing qualities. Intelligence, kindness, wealth, something.
Compensating factor.
Kind of. And crucially, similarity in sexual attitudes seems really important for attraction and satisfaction.
Makes sense. And personality similarity might grow more important over time.
Seems likely, yeah. Linked to greater long-term happiness in marriage.
Okay, so similarity is the bedrock, mostly. What about needs? Being drawn to people who fulfill something in us.
Absolutely fundamental. We look for partners who meet important needs, psychological, emotional, intellectual, sexual, spiritual, social, all of it.
Like a transaction, almost. Social exchange theory.
That's one way to look at it. Maximizing rewards, love, support, sex, companionship, and minimizing costs. Maybe not consciously calculated, but the dynamic is there.
And feeling liked back.
Reciprocity.
Hugely powerful.
Wow.
Just knowing someone likes you can dramatically increase how much you like them. It can even override a lukewarm first impression.
Especially for people with lower self-esteem, right? That acceptance feels really good.
Very much so. Praise and acceptance from someone can be incredibly alluring in that case.
It taps into that deep need to be valued. The book mentioned Plato, didn't it? The whole other half idea.
Yeah, Aristophanes' myth in the Symposium. Humans split in two, searching for their missing piece.
Super romantic.
It is, and it speaks to that longing for a partner who feels like they complete us, who meets those complementary needs.
And Ovid's advice, just pretend to be attracted.
Huh. Yeah, the idea that acting as if can sometimes generate the real feelings, maybe fake it till you make it, applies to love too.
Wild. Okay, so needs met, feeling liked,
Yeah.
powerful stuff. How does this all unfold? Is there a typical path from meeting to, love?
The book says there are different routes.
Definitely. Or maybe a significant shared event triggers it. Or just a slow burn, gradual development over time.
No single formula.
Oop. But there's often a kind of progression.
Like stages.
Sort of. Initial attraction leads to checking for compatibility socially, intellectually, emotionally.
Testing the waters.
Then building intimacy, sharing vulnerabilities, then forming mutual expectations about the relationship.
Getting on the same page.
Leading eventually to love, described as this state of mutual dependence, but still respecting independence.
A balance. What about gender differences and how this plays out?
The book notes some common patterns, though obviously not universal. Women may be more cautious initially.
Taking their time.
Yeah. While men might report falling faster. But then maybe women move towards commitment, like marriage, more readily.
While men might hesitate more at that stage.
Sometimes observed, yeah.
Yeah.
And the book discusses why evolutionary pressures, social scripts.
Mate selection versus learned dating behavior.
A mix of both, likely. Concepts like love screens, our internal filters and mating scripts, the social behaviors we follow.
Things we do without even realizing why.
Often, yes. Being aware of them is the first step to more conscious choices.
Okay, let's go deeper. The unconscious stuff. Attachment theory. Childhood echoes.
This is where it gets really fundamental. Attachment theory is huge here. Our earliest relationship, usually with our primary caregiver.
Mom or dad, usually.
Right. That bond creates a template, a model for how we approach closeness and intimacy later in life.
And that leads to different styles. Secure, anxious.
Exactly. Secure, anxious, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant. Based largely on how responsive and consistent that early care was.
So secure people, they had reliable caregivers.
Generally, yeah. And they tend to be more confident in relationships, better at giving and receiving love, more comfortable with intimacy.
Makes sense. And the insecure styles?
They struggle more. Anxious types might crave closeness, but fear abandonment, need lots of reassurance. Avoidant types might equate intimacy with loss of independence, pull away, suppress needs.
Wow, so our babyhood experiences are still running the show in our love lives.
They have a profound impact, often unconsciously.
Yeah.
The book also mentions other barriers. Narcissism, fear of being engulfed or abandoned, often rooted in those early stages too.
It's heavy stuff. What about Freud? He had thoughts on this too, right?
Oh yeah. Freud talked about looking for parental figures in partners' analytic love, seeking someone who resembles our opposite sex parent.
The whole Oedipus Electra complex idea.
Related to it, yeah.
Yeah.
And the importance of the incest taboo pushing us to find partners outside the family.
And anima and animus.
Right. The idea of an unconscious inner image of the opposite sex, the anima in men, the animus in women, formed partly by parental experiences.
And we project this onto people we're attracted to.
That's the theory. That projection is a powerful driver of that initial falling feeling. We see our inner ideal in them,
So we might be falling for an image inside us as much as the actual person.
It could be a big part of it, especially early on. And the book talks about reenacting childhood dynamics.
Trying to fix the past through our current partner.
Sometimes. Yeah. Choosing partners who mirror parents, positive or negative aspects, maybe unconsciously hoping for a different outcome this time. It could be a chance for healing, but it's tricky territory.
Definitely sounds tricky, which leads perfectly into this fatal attraction idea.
Ah, the double-edged sword. It's a really important concept.
The very thing that pulls you in becomes the thing that drives you crazy later.
Precisely. That strong, silent type. Later, he never talks. The wonderfully spontaneous partner. Later, they're unreliable and chaotic.
The witty charmer, later they use humor to avoid serious issues.
Exactly those kinds of things. The quality itself isn't good or bad, but its extreme expression or how it interacts with your needs over time becomes the problem.
And the book had that provocative idea, the wise unconscious choice.
Yeah, suggesting that maybe we're drawn to these traits, even the ones that become problematic, because they represent an unresolved issue from our own past that we need to work through.
So picking that silent type might be about your own issues with communication or vulnerability stemming from childhood.
That's the intriguing possibility. Like the attraction itself holds a key to our own growth, even if the relationship gets tough.
That reframes it quite a bit, not just bad luck, but maybe an unconscious assignment.
Could be. And the good news is, understanding this can help turn those problems into growth.
How so? What's the path forward?
First, identifying that link. What drew you in? What's causing stress now? Seeing the connection.
Becoming aware of the pattern.
Yeah, and understanding your core issue individually and as a couple. Often tracing it back to those earlier experiences.
Takes some self-reflection.
Definitely. Then the hard part, empathy. Understanding your partner's perspective and taking responsibility for how you contribute to the negative cycle.
Moving beyond blame.
Crucial. And consciously choosing to change the behaviors that trigger or wound your partner. It's about making that unconscious choice conscious and potentially transforming the dynamic.
It requires both people being willing, I imagine.
Ideally, yes. It frames love less as a static state and more as an ongoing, active process.
Okay, that's powerful. And then the book makes this leap, connecting love choices to work choices.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating parallel. It suggests the same unconscious needs and patterns driving our romantic attractions can also steer our career paths.
Seriously, how does that work?
The example of Lynn was striking. Kept choosing emotionally unavailable men and became a therapist, specializing in helping depressed, emotionally shut down men.
Whoa, so she was drawn to the same dynamic in her work as in her love life. Trying to heal it, maybe?
That's the interpretation. Trying to master that pattern, perhaps provide the care she felt was missing, either for herself or others she identified with.
So burnout in relationships and burnout at work could actually stem from the same root cause.
It's entirely possible, according to this view. Repeatedly hitting the same unresolved emotional wall in different arenas of life.
That's kind of mind-blowing. How do you figure that out for yourself?
Self-reflection, therapy, maybe even workshops focused on identifying these life patterns, uncovering the why behind the choices you consistently make in love and work.
Gaining that deeper self-awareness.
Exactly. To make more conscious, fulfilling choices across the board.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this up. Falling in love is clearly not simple.
Not at all. It's this incredibly complex mix. Proximity, arousal, how we perceive things, similarity, needs.
And all that deep unconscious stuff from way back, attachment, family patterns.
Yeah, it's a whole tapestry.
So for everyone listening, maybe you take a moment to think about your own experiences. What patterns do you see? What are your love screens?
It's worth reflecting on. Understanding these dynamics doesn't take away the magic, I don't think. It just adds layers, gives insight.
Totally. And while we've unpacked a lot of the science and psychology, that feeling, that experience, it's still deeply personal, isn't it?
Absolutely. Maybe the real magic is just in how all these different forces uniquely combine for each specific connection.
Yeah, a unique chemistry every time. Well, hopefully this deep dive sparks some aha moments and maybe encourages a bit more curiosity about this amazing human experience.
We hope so. It's endlessly fascinating.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.